Tally Hackett, welcome to the Saturn
That's
return.
not my name anymore.
Oh my god, of course it isn't. Well, to me, you'll always be Tally Hackett.
No, to me, I'll always be Tally Hackett. I cried when I changed my name.
Did you?
Alex came into our room and I was like hysterically crying on the gov.uk passport application. And he was like, you don't have to change your name. I was like, I do. I do. No, it's a good name.
Tal. Hello.
Hello, Cag.
And welcome to the Saturn Returns podcast. I feel like we should have been doing this when we were like 12 years old.
Oh my God, what was that thing I sent you the other day? I always get served these memes of people now, like teenagers now, doing their really sexy dance routines. And then it flashed back to what we were like doing our... Oh, I would love to dig up that footage of us doing our dancing.
I think for the sake of this episode, I'm going to have to find some of at least the photographs that we took. Do you remember when it had that thing, that feature where it like warped your faces?
Yeah. And we're just crying, we loved it. But we didn't care. There was no like makeup. It was all very innocent.
But that's because no one was really seeing it. I guess we put it on Facebook. No, we would put it on Facebook.
I think I need to delete my Facebook.
But for the audience that doesn't know, I mean, this is just going to be very conversational, and this is a kind of trip down memory lane for us because, as I referred to you in the book as my oldest relationship.
I cried when I read that. It's like about platonic love. It's amazing. I
And
read your book. Do you remember? I got it and I read it in like 3 hours.
I know.
You were like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I had 6 coffees.
Yeah, but that meant so much to me.
It's amazing. I loved it.
But you've been such a huge chapter of my life. And so I kind of wanted to have you on to not only talk about what you're doing now, but also of like the journey that we've been through together as friends, because it's such a big topic that people don't really know how to talk about, especially when things change and life moves you in different directions. And then kind of how it comes.
We've been through a lot together.
We've been through a lot. So should we take it back to the beginning?
Where we met.
Yes.
How old were we? We must have been really little at school, at primary school.
So we both went to Prospect House in Putney. I would have been...
You were very sweet, little funny little thing.
I didn't look like I do now when I was little.
It's like, what's that film where they, you know, like in a film where they sort of have like quite a big sort of glow up. But you were a beautiful, sweet little thing. But, you know, even your dad said that your teeth look like they've been hammered in by a drunk blind man. And you had this eye patch these glasses. And your hair.
You always describe me with glasses.
It just makes it better. Was it just the eye patch?
It was just the eye patch, but the eye patch had little stickers on it.
It did. And then you had this sort of like hair that was sort of like little wispy pubes coming out. You were so sweet. You know, you were very lovable and cute. But you had a glow up.
I had a lot of ailments when I was little.
Yeah.
I had this skin thing on my arm, and then I was obviously really, really small.
Yeah, and you had that funny walk.
I didn't have a funny walk, but all the rest is true. No, whereas you were always very cool, popular. So we weren't friends at Prospect House, really.
I was not friends with everyone. No.
We became friends in Seaview.
Yeah. Then we became friends in Seaview in the Isle of Wight, which is somewhere we both grew up going together. You know, like you go away for your summer holidays. That's where we would go. And it was magic.
It really was.
It was idyllic till the boys and sex got involved.
Yeah, but it was
that was very late though, really. Especially for you. Christ. Real late bloomer.
But it was because we just kind of cruised around
on our micro scooters.
No phones.
Oh, God.
No one cared where we were.
I think I knew every single person on the Isle of Wight's house phone number. And I'm not going to say it in case your mum starts getting some prank calls. That's probably what we would have been doing, prank calling people. God. Yeah, we had an amazing time. We learnt to, it sounds a bit much, doesn't it? But we did we had to have summer jobs. Our mums were very good in instilling that and us good work ethos, and we would work. I mean, it now sounds a bit very posh, but at the local yacht club. And we lasted, was it a day or two? When did we get fired?
I'd give us 2.
We also, who fires 15-year-olds? Like,
so this is basically our first job, pretty much.
This is our first job because then we worked at Cows the year after, which was an absolute disaster. We were assistant instructors. Honestly, I think they paid us 50p a day. We were so thrilled. And there was a staff briefing the day after we just started. It was day 2. And this man stood up and said, well, unfortunately, we've got some very bad news because there's been a few complaints from some of the members saying there were 2 girls going through the moorings, which is like where all the boats are kept, on like a tiny little dinghy with an engine at the back. There was one at the front holding onto a rope, pretending to lasso the rope, screaming, and the other one was at the back, definitely me, at the back driving, going through the moorings way too fast. And I looked at Cag and I was like, oh my God, I think that was us. And he's like, Caggie and Tally, you are fired. And I remember walking out and our mums being so upset, and it was a really big deal.
But actually, considering all the things we've done, that was not that bad. That wasn't worthy of being fired over it.
Yeah, but I think, we all do make mistakes when we're younger. We've made many. Some of them are way too X-rated to say, especially on my part.
Yeah, well, maybe I don't know where you're going to go with that.
No, I'm just not. I'm just going to stop talking because otherwise I think we'll probably get cancelled. So.
But in terms of sort of seeing each other grow through different stages, because those were like towards the end of our teenage years.
Yeah, and we didn't go to the same secondary school, but we'd speak on the phone. A huge life point for you was your parents getting divorced.
Yeah.
That was massive. And we used to speak on the phone every night. And so much of what I do now stems from, and what you with you obviously write beautiful poetry. And we used to do this thing where we'd ring each other and then I'd say, right, okay, call you back in 3 minutes. Let's see what we can write. And then we put the phone down, obviously like a big house phone, write a poem, call each other back and read it to each other. I think I still have some of them. I need to find them and dig them out. But
I still do as well.
Yeah.
I actually have the one
I wrote for my dad.
that you wrote for Dad.
That was like one of the first ones that I wrote. That was really cute. Yeah, I should share it. But yeah, there's been so many massive, life things that we've been together. It's so nice when you have a friend who, it's like really to watch each other properly grow up from that funny little eye patch girl.
But also, I think we've always shared, which probably we didn't appreciate or realise at the time, that sort of creative expression. Definitely. I mean, we used to spend not only doing the poetry and everything, but we would spend hours doing like role play.
No, nothing dodgy. Actually, nothing dodgy. We used to do role play. Oh my God, we'd do like acting scenes, lots of it in Sea View, arguing. I'd be the angry husband and you'd be the exhausted wife.
We did. We used to lie in bed for hours.
Yeah, we did.
Just playing these different characters.
Which actually is so lovely. And I have
on like New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, but I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else. Like, we had such a beautiful friendship that really fulfilled so many aspects, and the creative ways we stimulated each other is actually amazing.
And it meant that we had endless fun.
Also, imagine if it's in the time now, we'd probably be lying in bed on TikTok. It's very depressing.
Or we'd be huge TikTok stars.
We'd be absolutely killing it. I do keep thinking about, I keep getting also served all these videos of people who do things on TikTok and on OnlyFans who sell like pictures of their feet. Apparently Lily Allen's making like
fortune.
She's got really nice feet, but it's not something I'm into. But like, she's got nice feet.
You've thought about it, haven't you?
Have I? There was a point I remember having dinner with a girlfriend, and she told me that people sell their dirty underwear and made a lot of money, and I was like, right, okay. Interesting. And then I actually spoke to friends the other night when I was coming home from dinner about the other girl who farts into jars. And she's absolutely cleaned up.
I've heard that about someone that sweats into vials.
Oh, yes, that's what I've heard that as well. But the farting into jars, so I thought I could be called Guff Gal, and I could fart into jars. And we were talking about how it would work and whether you sort of get the jar and then you have like, obviously it's really obvious this is your home, so we'd have to hang, I don't know why I'd be doing it here, but we'd hang some material there, and then we'd get the jar. And then my friend said, would the camera be at the bottom of the jar? And I was like, what, so you can see the fart come out? Surely it'll be at the side. Anyway, yeah, sorry, I'm going to start farting into jars if all fails with the poetry. That's my next stop.
But you've had an amazing career pivot.
Yeah.
Would you be able to, because I think for our audience, like, people
are like, who the fuck is this girl?
No, but as in often people are like, I really want to change what I'm 100%. Doing. Like, I'm hating my job. Yeah. I had this idea. And I always find so beautiful about what you do, and I try and encourage people to do the same, is like, go back to what brought you joy when you were young.
Definitely.
And that's like what you've done. And you've turned it into this incredible business, which is just so you. And it makes people so happy.
Yeah, it's so nice. I basically make people cry with happiness for a living, which is pretty lovely.
Would you be able to explain it in a bit more detail?
So obviously I've always...
And from the idea of it.
Yeah, well, I've always written poems, obviously, with you, and I loved it. And I love writing, and I love words and
storytelling.
And storytelling, yeah. I'm a good storyteller. I love like a fun, upbeat, happy story and some lols. I was a PA for ages. I ran like children's. Actually, I'm not even going to talk about that because it's a whole nother tangent. But yeah, I was a PA. I had lots of various jobs, and I just hadn't really found my thing. I was really happy and everything was great, but I wrote poems for people for birthdays and weddings, and everyone would say, "Oh, Tally, do one of your poems for my 30th, and can you do a speech?" And you know, I just did it because I loved it. It was like my thing. And Alex was like, "Oh, it's so, you know, it's so amazing that you've got this sort of talent, and it's lovely." But it was never really like I just never thought about it of actually making it into something, a career. And my sister-in-law, Tori, who's a life coach, who's amazing, she was like, "What are you doing? Just make this into a business. Write poems for people." And obviously, you know, imposter syndrome, which I think, or maybe it's worse for women, I'm sure it must be, but I was obviously like, don't be ridiculous, I couldn't do it with someone I don't know, oh my god, no. And anyway, I sort of pushed the fuck it button, and it takes massive balls, and it's really risky, and especially going from something where you're making money to then sort of taking, you know, I kept the other job I was doing and sort of started slowly, and I was really lucky in that it worked. And I do feel like there's when I didn't really tell anyone I was doing it, and I made the Instagram, and I was like, fuck it, and loads of people shared genuinely because they've seen me do a poem at a party, or they heard me read a poem at my brother's wedding, or whatever it may be. And I remember someone saying, in a world where there is so much AI, this feels like a really human business. And I think for me that really spurred me on, because
we need that.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I'm really good at poems, I am, but I also think it's like that human connection. Like, I understand relationships, you know, I understand people, and I think that I love getting to know each client, and I'll have a call with them, and it's amazing, and we chat and we laugh, and I feel like I've known them forever, and then I'll write them a questionnaire and they fill it in, and then I'll write the poem from that. But it's all the poems are full of, you know, I do sad ones for funerals and awful things, but most of them, even those ones, to be honest, are just full of love and happy memories and special moments. And yeah, I love it. I feel really lucky that I love what I do.
And it's also such a unique ability to, because it sounds like everyone that you've worked with has had the same response, whereas it's like, it feels like it's what they wish they could have written, because it feels so personal.
Well, so many people, actually, it's so funny, which is, thank God, I have zero ego, and all I want is for them to just love their poems and enjoy it. But it's theirs, you know, they're paying me to do it. But a lot of people will read them out and then will say they wrote them, because it's so unfathomable that anybody could have written something about that person that everyone in that room knows and loves, that feels so spot on,
of quirks and stories. And
I, you know, I love doing ones which are like mix of like very funny and happy and upbeat and sentimental, but also with a massive vein running through of, I love you. Like, this is a big moment, whatever it may be. And I want to tell you in a either really public way or read it to you, just the two of you. But either way, it's really magic.
Would you be happy to share a poem?
Yeah, I actually wrote one. I shared one the other day that I actually thought about you when I wrote it, because it was like it was about platonic love, because I sort of thought I knew that. I actually think I just got off the phone to my mum and she was talking about how friendships change as you get older, and which is obviously so true. But yeah, so it goes: to the friends who lift you, shake you, and guide you every day, who, no matter the circumstances, know exactly what to say. They know your joys, your sorrows, and when to just pause. There's no contract here, no promises or get-out clause. It's empathy, support, and endless care for all you do. Just pure platonic love, quietly helping you through. Thanks, Cag. Yeah,
that's so true.
I know, but and that's what I'm trying to do, is share more personal stuff that I've written, because also, so like, I don't share the poems that I write for clients because they're so personal and they're theirs.
Yeah. But I think sharing stuff like that is so powerful because it's also universal, and I think the platonic love piece people don't speak about enough. Not only how profound it can be, but also painful it can be when things do change. Because I know that we've gone through. I mean, being best friends from the age of like 12 or something.
Yeah.
And then we were like inseparable for all of our teen years. And then I guess it was probably not until like maybe when I moved to LA or something that
time, distance, so
Yeah, and then for a bit we went in kind of different directions, but there was always there's always an unsaid kind of pain in that.
Oh my God, totally.
No one talks about it.
No.
It's not like...
And it's kind of, you just want to say, look, everything's fine. We're just doing different things at the moment, but I love you and this is never going to change. But it's funny, isn't it? Because it kind of happens and time goes. Like, I have to say, you become so much more acutely aware of time as you get older, for sure. And obviously, I'm sure for everyone it's the same. But for me, particularly since having children, I am watching these little people like grow in front of your eyes. I am literally like, oh my God, like I'm like, this year's nearly done. It's just, it's wild.
What, and how precious it
is. Yeah. And I'm just so conscious of being mindful, and it's of like being in the moment, and there's a lot of sort of pressure to be present. I feel like it's everywhere. I'll go on again on Instagram and everyone's like, you will only have this day, one day in your life. It's like, I'm literally like, fuck, oh my God, better do something amazing. Which actually is a bit much, isn't it? Because it's actually the little moments that are the best. 100%. Not the massive ones. Well, they're good too, but not all the time. Fuck, we'd be exhausted.
And how do you feel now that you're doing Pinky and that's thriving?
I love it. My creative cup is full, but I'm always thinking of ways that I can do more. And I love people and speaking to people, and I definitely feel like, when you feel like you have so much to give, I'm kind of at that point. I feel like I'm on a bit of a...
Well, because also you've always had so much to give, and I feel like be fair to say you've only really allowed yourself more recently to start giving it. And I think now that the gates have opened, you're like, oh wow, there's so much more there. And but like you say as well, having that awareness of time, you're like, let's go.
Yeah, I need to get on with it. But it's funny because I wouldn't change anything because everything's led to this, which is probably the same for you. But I do think that there's I read something the other day that's listing all these amazing successful people who started their careers or did the first thing that they did, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And actually, I think there's so much pressure when we're younger to be like, well, what are you going to be? What are you going to do? And actually, it's kind of fun if you don't know, because I definitely only found my groove at 35, and that's not even old.
I think also there's this narrative that when you have kids, things are gonna kind of narrow, and I'm sure in many ways they do. But what I love about your story is you had kids and then you've been like, actually,
I was literally pregnant with Goldie, and I had a call with this. Obviously, I'm not like the most woo-woo person, but I definitely am. So I have Channy because of you. Like I definitely like my Saturn returns. Like I've got more into all the astrological side of everything because of you. And I actually think it's super interesting. And so much of it makes sense. You can't really, I'm sort of surrendered to it. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's probably because of the fucking moon, isn't it? Whereas before I would not be as open to it, which I think is really great. But I had a call with a sort of like a reader, a healer. I don't know what what she is. Anyway, and she, when I was pregnant with Goldie, and I said, I'm thinking of starting this business, and I just need someone to tell me to do it. And everything she said about me and about the business, she even told me, she said, you're having a girl, and I didn't know. And I said, have you ever got it wrong? She said, yeah, once. So I was like, okay, fine. It's not, it's fine. Might not be a girl. I knew in my gut it was a girl anyway, and everything she said has been so spot on. And she was the one who was like, never filter yourself. You have to, it's your true self that is going to be what gets you, places within your career. So that I always think about that and hold on to what she said. But I do think sometimes you need someone to give you that little push.
But as someone that's always had a huge amount of validation from everyone you've ever met, that you are wonderful and funny and that people adore you, what do you think held you back from, I guess, being your true self in that kind of way?
Me. Like, the only person holding me back was me. And I don't know, maybe it's because I didn't think I deserved it. Maybe it was because, I think I definitely have been on a bit of a journey this year. I started doing Pilates 3 times a week. I go to an amazing place in Barnes called Life Body, and then I'll roll up my mat and do a Bryony Dairy class. And that, looking after myself, and I think having children and knowing what kind of role model I would like to be, and for them, has had like quite a big. And this lady who I spoke to when I was pregnant, the sort of psychic lady, she said that your daughter's, this baby's coming to like teach you something massive and show you like she's a lesson. And I really feel like she has been, which sounds probably a bit mad.
Like a mirror for you.
Yeah. Like to sort of, and I've really changed my life this year, sort of with my health and with how I live and how much I'm now a massive walker. Like I've changed my mindset, but I worked with a coach, a guy called Max Lowry. That was a conscious decision I made at the beginning of the year when I decided I wanted to make these changes. And that's been probably the best thing I've ever done. He's incredible, and it's changed my whole mindset. Like so much of it is mindset. I think I was always so worried about like the diet and like doing the keto and or whatever. And then actually I changed my mindset and everything's sort of kind of falling into place. Like I get to do Pilates. I get to walk. Like how lucky am I? Like it's not like, oh God, got to go to a fucking class. Like it's not like that at all. And it sounds like the smallest thing, but it's really amazing.
And in terms of the woo-woo stuff, that you're like kind of...
No,
I sort of went off on that tangent and suddenly was like, what did... Because obviously you've known me so better than anyone.
Now I sort of feel like perhaps I've had a bit more of like would we call it a spiritual awakening? It sounds a bit intense, but now I've sort of experienced it. I now understand it a lot more, like where you were at. And I definitely think like having watched you, like, even your relationship with yourself, your relationship with alcohol, like your relationship with your boyfriend, like the way you manage yourself is very different pre you becoming a bit woo-woo.
That's a nice way of putting it.
It is a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. You're like,
got some really good flashbacks here, but I will save your...
I mean, to kind of add a bit of context, I think you were the one that coined the name Katrina for me.
She was fad.
which was my alter ego when I'd be drinking.
It's just like, it was so funny because and I know lots of people who have this and haven't done what you've done and kind of haven't recognised that perhaps when it gets to a certain point, like, it's not good. But we would go out and we'd drink together, and you'd get to this point and I'd look at you and I'd be like, oh no, because you would look through me. Like, you would not see me. And actually, in retrospect, it's like, you know, it's like, we're so lucky that you didn't get in any trouble or you didn't get hurt, or
quite scary.
It's really scary. It's really scary. And like,
and not everybody has that when they drink.
No, not at all. But you would, it was lights are on and no one's home. And I would talk to you and you would honestly not, you'd be looking over there and you'd sort of go a bit cross-eyed, and which is fine. And it was just, I don't know, it wasn't right, was it?
No.
It wasn't right. And I think that, because I remember that, because the thing is that was so difficult, as is for any situation when anyone stops drinking, is that you were really fun to a certain point.
Yeah.
And I think that's where...
Tricky.
Yeah, and I remember being like, this isn't right. But obviously there's so many people around you being like, no, Cag, you're so fun. Like, come and have another drink. And then I was there being like, oh, God. Who's going to be the one fucking taking her home? Me, and getting you in a cab to go back to your dad and where we'd always stay. You couldn't remember your PIN code to your taxi. We'd have taxis coming to your poor dad's house, ringing the doorbell the next day. I dropped your daughter and her friend home. They didn't have any money.
No, it was awful. Because I guess it was like blackouts,
yeah, it was
right? But it was walking, talking, fully animated.
But that's what was so weird, is that you were... You actually almost seem, bar not being with it and looking a bit not with it, you seemed kind of fine. Like, you were totally present, like you were physically, you weren't like falling, you know, people get pissed, like, that's what was so weird.
Wasn't sloppy.
No, never, which is very strange.
Yeah. And I guess that was probably the biggest contributor that brought me to that point where I was like, I really needed to just, I call it like a period of self-inflicted exile, where you're like, I need to just remove myself, because I also everything.
Don't think you wouldn't feel good, like, hungover, like, it mentally.
No,
I'd be a bit hungover and I'd be like, oh, should we go and have a burger? Shock. And you'd be like, sort of
in turmoil for weeks. Yeah.
But so I think really, actually looking at your sort of woo-woo journey, it was the best thing ever for you.
But at the time, what did you think?
I think when you started to like talking about the moon and stuff, I was the thing is, I think knowledge is power, and I don't think I really knew. I was a bit kind of like, okay.
Bye, Cag.
She's like, I come over and she's like got all her crystals out, and I'd be like, Christ, is she going to sacrifice me? What's going on?
But it was also very different.
It was really different because you were quite early. Like, now I think there's so much of it around, you know, lots of people are really in tune with the universe. Like, now I'm literally like, right, look for a sign. And my sister-in-law, don't forget, is, you know, she's a health coach, and she's, you know, she's very into like everything astrology and crystals, and, you know, so I think that opened my mind a bit. But I do think people are scared of what they don't understand and what they don't know. It's not like a rude thing. It's not like I was thinking, oh God, like, I just kind of I didn't really get it. But you were early for all of it. And now obviously there's so, you know, you've raised so much awareness talking about everything, and the Saturn returns is like fascinating.
And then in terms of our friendship, because obviously I think during that period, it kind of like we went off on different paths. But then I have so many people message me saying, you know, asking to have more episodes or questions around platonic love and friendship and stuff.
Dude,
I do.
So
and I
lovely.
always reference us because I do truly believe that when there's that like love that is not really to do with who you're growing up with or where you're at school, it's like wherever we go to in the world, whoever we become, we've managed to kind of like find each other again.
Totally.
And it's such a beautiful thing now, because it's like still to this day that I don't know really anyone else that knows me like you know me.
No. Well, even it's so funny because it transcends any time or distance. And I know even when I see you, we have such a like deep emotional connection where we do know each other like the back of our hands. You know, like the other day, you hadn't told me something and I laid eyes on you and I knew.
Yeah.
And I knew.
And I didn't look at you.
No. But I didn't say anything because I knew you were going to tell me, and you did. And I said, I knew it. And then...
So then you made a joke that I won't repeat. But it's also your ability to kind of see into my head of the sort of dark, twisty thoughts.
Well, you were having a bad day and I made a joke about you walking in front of a car. Yeah. But I know that you were actually thinking that because I know where your mind goes. You know. But
for the record, I wasn't serious, but you know when you're just like really in your head and just in the field.
But even when you ring me, I can hear in your voice, sort of like within the first 10 seconds, whether there's something that's... And I know that sounds like, oh yeah, of course you can tell one of your oldest friends, but it's like, no, but I really know.
Yeah, it's slightly different.
And it's the same with you. Like it's, it's vice versa. But we are very lucky and to be able to go through all these phases in our lives and have held each other's hands and sort of been there. And platonic love is amazing. Like the joy and happiness that I will feel when we are together and when we are laughing hysterically about all the terrible things that we've done, that I've done and you let me do. No, I'm joking. That's really magic, And
also how lucky are we that we had that childhood that was untouched by
so pure
technology and social media. I mean,
we used to write letters to each other. Remember the letters we used to write to all the boys in the Isle of Wight? I was Penpals.
And we used to write each other letters as well. I remember going to your house in Putney and we'd have like these little post-it notes that we'd have on the mirror of like these little messages to each other of like us against the world.
I actually still think I have them at my mum's house. Us against the world, you and me forever, all this stuff. But it was so sweet and it was so true. Yeah. And then I wrote down all the swear words and put them in a pot. My mum found them and was like, never write anything down that you don't want to be read. And I was like, oh my God.
That's really good advice.
Yeah, but then when she came over my shoulder and I was like 18, writing a list of boys. And she goes, oh, darling, you having a party? And it was all the boys I'd ever slept with.
You were older than 18.
I think I was like 25. It was long. No, I was much older. I think I was at uni, so I must have been like... I was 12. No, I'm joking. Oh.
What would you say if you had to, like, of our eras, was the one that you look back on most fondly?
Funny enough, I think it's something that transcends all eras, and it's any time we're in Sea of You together. And you'll message me and there's this alleyway called Dogshire Alley. But anyway, there's this alleyway. And we sit at the end and it's our spot. And there's a step and you message me, I'm at our spot. And then I'll walk down and we'd have a Diet Coke, and back in the day we'd have a cig. They're like, yeah. Who'd you fancy? And that I feel like is somewhere that we consistently will always have, no matter what happens, which we're extremely fortunate to have.
That's very true.
And I think we both like being by the sea. Who doesn't?
But also that spot, you're right, because Sea View in itself has this ability to make everything else just... it just brings perspective. You're like, all that other stuff, all the trivial things that I was worrying about just don't.
No.
But also that specific area, because it hasn't changed at all.
No.
But yet year on year, decade on decade, like we do, and our lives unfold.
Yeah.
And then we're kind of brought back to that same
and
space.
it's like kind of like no time has passed, which is really special. But I feel so lucky. We've got something really mega, and we always have. Me and you. Me, your fat sidekick.
That summer of freedom, when we like finished school.
Yeah.
Had the car.
We had the car.
We had London, and we also had the Isle of Wight, and we were just,
It was great.
I basically moved into a house in Putney. I don't know why. I just just did.
Why not?
It
was really good. But yeah, it's so funny. But I look back and I'm like, feel joy and happiness about those years. I'm not like, I would do it all over again, because I actually feel like we're both in really good places where we are now, which is quite a nice thing to sit and say.
100%.
Because there've been moments where we haven't, for sure.
What as in ourselves?
Yeah. And well, we're really reconnecting at the moment as well, you and I.
Yeah.
Which is very sweet. Yeah, exciting.
For people that are growing up in this time, like, what would your advice be?
Get off TikTok. Live. There's a lot of pressure on children. And I think that everyone has to grow up really fast. And I'm so conscious of that with my kids. I'm like, no, let's preserve that innocence as long as we can. Obviously, like in a realistic way. I'm not going to be sort of like, you know, doing something weird when Trick's 20 and breastfeeding him. No, but I think, I think that be nice to yourself, for God's sakes, which actually is something I should have been doing for a lot longer than I have.
And what about friendships? Like advice for people that may be kind of dealing with change in direction or shifts in friendship groups and feeling.
I definitely think our guts are underrated. And I think if something or someone doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. But that takes age and time to sort of recognise and learn, I do think. But we used to have, I've now got friends probably I can count on two hands. And before, it was exhausting.
It's like a full-time job.
Such a full-time job. But I loved it and I had so much fun. But I definitely know who there's like mutual love and respect and support, and those that I could really count on now. And I think when we were younger, you mistake a lot of that, and you will be there for people who perhaps will not be there for you. But again, that comes with growing up, learning, maybe some heartache, maybe some pain, but you'll work it out. Trust your gut, I think.
And for those that would be interested to potentially come with you,
oh yeah,
some of your work, where can they find you?
Check out my Instagram, Pinky Studio by Tally. And yeah, inquire on my website and let's chat. But I'm going to keep sharing more of my personal stuff as well. Keep myself accountable. I started making reels. God, I think I'm the oldest woman on Instagram. And literally took me about 4 days to make one the other day.
No.
You are awful. I am. Well, you're just not. It's like you sort of like born in the wrong era. Like social media is like, because obviously it's amazing for like work and stuff, but you're not technologically. You're not like gifted. But the world needs to, hear everything you got to say, and
I find it a really tricky medium. I mean, thank God for podcasts.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't communicate.
You're the kind of person who would like take a picture of yourself in the dark and then put it up, and we'd be like, we can't see you.
I think my first ever Instagram post was a picture of a packet of Walker's Crisps.
100%. I'm surprised it wasn't hula hoops. Hula hoops and an avocado.
They're having a comeback in my world.
Yeah, unreal. Yeah. No, well, I'm so proud of you and all you've achieved.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I've loved this.
Me too. Thank you for having me. Again. We can. I'd love that. Maybe we'll do an X-rated version.
After hours.
Yeah.